Now, if you're doing this rule in a real market, you may want to modify some elements of it. And the element I suggest you modify is the number of ticks that you want it to have moved. So I used 5 ticks in the demonstration video, just so that we could get a market fairly quickly that would exhibit those characteristics. But really what you should be doing is you should be saying, what is a significant move? What would we define as a steamer? So, if we say it has to have moved 20 ticks or something like that, then you can say, well, that's moved a fair amount and therefore probably the momentum will continue. 5 ticks is probably too small in reality for using this particular rule, but the only reason I set it there is that you can see how this rule plays out fairly quickly and then start to play with the characteristics from there. So as I suggested in the video, you may want to modify the time range it's looking at, maybe 2 minutes ago, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 120 seconds, maybe 3 minutes ago. But you also want to look at how much it's moved in order to trigger, and those are the variables that you can play with in this particular type of rule. But I suggest you start with a very simple version of it, just so that you can understand what it does and how it's doing it, and then expand and play around with all of the characteristics from there. So it's important to understand as well that these parameters here are interchangeable on the historic relative odds condition. And what we could actually say is we could say the current price of the horse that we're looking at, its last traded price now is less than the last traded price 60 seconds ago minus 20 ticks. So in fact you can do it the other way around. You can say the current price is much lower than it was 60 seconds ago. But both sides of the way that you construct this rule are fairly similar. You're just interchanging the values of this particular parameter. So it's important to understand that as well. So one other thing that you may wish to do as well is apply it to more than one runner. That's very easy to do. If we go up here, you can see we've got the place a back bet rule, and if we click on this icon here, that will copy the selected rule. But what we're going to do now is basically say we want that to apply to runner number 2. And if we look at the parameters, that will obviously apply to row number 2. And if you look at the conditions, that will also apply to row 2. So now we're looking at runner 1 and 2 on this particular rule. So if I apply that, it will now look on runner 1 or 2 to apply this particular rule to. And if you want to do it to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you can copy the rule and get it to do that as well. So let's apply this to runner 3 as well. So we now have that applied, and we'll just go through and check these, that it's applied to runner 3. An interesting thing about the historic relative odds condition is you can get it to look at other odds within the market, so you don't have to apply it to the same selection. You could actually get it to look for something else, but we're keeping this simple at the moment. So that's why we've kept this rule as it is, but it's now looking at 3 runners instead of 1. If you're interested in learning more about BetAngel, visit betangel.com and download a free trial today.